Okay, let me know if you're not hearing me well. We're going to read from Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto, chapter 5, text 46.
546.
3, 5, 46. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Jaiva Naram Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam.
Udiraya.
Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer his humble obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan, to Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Asta Prayeshva Bhadreshvu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashake Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtikim. Okay, so we're going to do the Sanskrit first. Panena te devakata sudaya.
Anena te devakata sudhaya.
Pravrita bhaktya vishadasayaye.
Pravida bhaktya vishadasayaye.
Vairagya sharam pratilabhya bodham.
Vairagya saram pratilabhya bodham.
Yatam cha sanviyurakunta dishnyam.
Yatam jasanti urakunta dishnyam.
Anena te devakata sudaya.
Anena te devakata sudaya.
Pravrita bhaktya vishadasayaye.
Pravida bhaktya vishadasayaye.
Vairagya saram pratilabhya bodham.
Vairagya saram pratilabhya bodham.
Yatam cha sanviyurakunta dishnyam.
Yatam jasanti urakunta dishnyam.
Anena te devakata sudaya.
Anena te devakata sudaya.
Pravrita bhaktya vishadasayaye.
Pravida bhaktya vishadasayaye.
Vairagya saram pratilabhya bodham.
Vairagya saram pratilabhya bodham.
Yatam cha sanviyurakunta dishnyam.
Yatam jasanti urakunta dishnyam. Panena te devakata sudaya.
Anena te devakata sudaya.
Pravida bhaktya vishadasayaye.
Pravrita Bhaktya Vishadasayaye.
Vairagya saram pratilabhya bodham.
Vairagya saram pratilabhya bodham.
Yatanjasan virakunta dishnyam.
Yatam Chasunviyurakunta Dishnyam. Panena te devakata sudaya.
Panena te devakata sudaya.
Pavida bhaktya vishadasyaye sayaye.
Pravida bhaktya vishadasayaye.
Vairagyasaram Pratilabhya Bodham
Vairagyasaram pratilabhya bodham
Yatanjasam Viyuhakuntadishnyam
Yatanjasan viyurakuntadishnyam.
Anyone else wants to recite the verse?
Panena te devakata sudaya.
Anena te devakata sudaya.
Pravrida bhaktya vishada shayaye.
Pravrida bhaktya vishata shayaye.
Vairagya saram pratilapya bodham.
Vairagyasaram pratilabhya bodham
Yata jasan viyurakunta dishnam.
Yatanjasan viyurakuntadishnyam.
Panena,
Panena,
by drinking,
by drinking,
te,
te,
of you,
of you,
Deva,
Deva,
O Lord,
O Lord,
Kata,
Kata,
topics,
topics,
Sudaya,
Sudhaya,
of the nectar,
of the nectar,
Pravrida,
Pravrida,
highly enlightened,
highly enlightened,
Bhaktya,
Bhaktya,
by devotional service,
by devotional service,
Vishadasaya,
Vishada Asaya,
with a greatly serious attitude,
with a greatly serious attitude,
yea,
yea,
those who,
those who,
Vairagyasaram,
Vairagyasaram,
the entire purport of renunciation,
the entire purport of renunciation,
Pratilabhya,
Pratilabhya,
achieving,
achieving,
Bodham,
Bodham,
intelligence,
intelligence,
Yata,
Yata,
as much as,
much as,
Anjasa,
Anjasa,
quickly,
quickly,
Anvyu,
Anviyu,
achieve,
achieve,
Vakunta Dishnyam,
Akunta Dishnam,
Vaikunta Loka in the spiritual sky.
Vaikuntha Loka in the spiritual sky.
Translation. O Lord, persons who, because of their serious attitude, attain the stage of enlightened devotional service, achieve the complete meaning of renunciation and knowledge, and attain the Vaikunta Loka in the spiritual sky, simply by drinking the nectar of your topics. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The difference between the impersonalistic mental speculators and the pure devotees of the Lord is that the former pass through a miserable understanding of the absolute truth at every stage, whereas the devotees enter into the kingdom of all pleasures, even from the beginning of their attempt. The devotee has only to hear about devotional activities which are as simple as anything in ordinary life, and he also acts very simply, whereas the mental speculator has to pass through a jugglery of words, which are partially facts and partially a make-show for the maintenance of an artificial impersonal status. In spite of these strenuous efforts to attain perfect knowledge, the impersonalist attains merging into the impersonal oneness of the Brahmajyoti of the Lord, which is also attained by the enemies of the Lord, simply because of their being killed by him. The devotees, however, attain to the highest stage of knowledge and renunciation and achieve the Vaikunta Lokas, the planets in the spiritual sky. The impersonalist attains only the sky and does not achieve any tangible transcendental bliss, whereas the devotee attains to the planets where real spiritual life prevails. With a serious attitude, the devotee throws away all achievements like so much dust, and he accepts only devotional service, the transcendental culmination. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saha Ganara Gunatan Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Galada Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prastaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine, Namaste Saraswate Deve, Gauravani Prajarini, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, Vastatya Desha Tarini. Okay. I feel quite a lack of ideas what to say, so I'm just going to go into it and see what comes. When I read the verse, different words came to my, just stood out for me, and the first one was the serious attitude. So someone who wants to who wants spiritual realization, like practical realization of what it means to be a spirit soul and not this body, the gross body, and also the subtle body, not the ideas, the thoughts, the feelings. It takes a serious commitment to come to that realization, and to come to understand who is God, who is Krishna, as a spiritual, completely spiritual, blissful personality. It's not like an easy walk through the forest. So this stood out for me. It takes for us to be really serious, and yeah, like looking at my own experience, I see that serious doesn't mean I'm never like laughing or never having fun or never joyful. It just means that I really mean it. I really want to come out of the material understanding of life, which is always accompanied by misery and suffering, and to come to the spiritual understanding of life, to come to a place of a place of complete 100% responsibility. I'm here and the circumstances are perfect for my understanding that I'm a spirit soul and not this human body, to come to the understanding that I made a choice to be separate from God, separate from Krishna, and to try and enjoy, try and kind of be a creator myself. Perhaps in my case, I can say thinking I could do it better than God. I have a better idea how things could be. And yeah, so it takes a deep commitment and a serious commitment to let go of all my ideas of how things should be, how I should be, how others should be, how the world should be, how a spiritual master should be, how God should be, how creation should be, like to let go of all these ideas and trust that beyond my ideas there's a true eternal idea which is ever existing and which is real. Which is real. So that's one word that stood out for me. And then what stood out for me and was like enlightened devotional service. And yeah, we can do devotional service without knowing that we're doing devotional service. Like I remember when I was in teacher training, it was maybe 2004, 2005. It was 2005, and I had moved in with some friends, and one of these friends, she was worshipping Lord Jagannath in her room, and she was going to the temple, to the Krishna temple in Zurich, and for the teacher training in like religious class, we got the assignment to portray a religion, to make a portrait, and then present it to the other students. And so I thought, oh, well, I'm going to make a portrait of my friend, my housemate, who was worshipping Lord Jagannath and going to the Krishna temple. And so I accompanied her with a video camera, and she said, well, I said, I'd like to make a portrait of you and the temple. And she said, oh yeah, there's a big festival coming up. It's called Govardhan Puja. Why don't you come along? And so I did. And I made a video. I made an interview with her in her room with Lord Jagannath, and then the journey to the temple by train, and then at the temple, Govardhan Puja, my first visit to a temple, and everyone was jumping around and singing Hare Krishna and dancing around a hill made of sweets. And I made this video, and I showed it to the other students at the teacher training at this, and they were like really critical. Oh, yeah, this is the Hare Krishna movement. That's a sect, and and they would ask critical questions. And I was really defending the Krishna devotees. No, like it's not a sect. They don't need to pay anything. It doesn't cost anything. It's all by choice. And I, like only years later, I understood I was doing devotional service, but I had no idea what devotional service is. Like it was far, far away from me. I didn't even know this word. So here it's enlightened devotional service. So yeah, in my understanding, any devotional service gives us spiritual credits. Like Krishna gets, oh, here's someone doing something for me that is really pleasing. He's feeling joy, and he notices this soul is doing something for me. And then here, if it's conscious or unconscious, I don't think he minds so much. And yet here, the stage of enlightened devotional service is mentioned. And I was also thinking of, and now today, more and more I do devotional service, and I know it's devotional service. I'm not sure if it's enlightened, if that's the meaning of it, but I know that now I'm aware, like I'm aware now I'm speaking about Srimad Bhagavatam and endeavoring to speak in a way that's pleasing and enlightening and true, like in aligned with truth, eternal truth. So that's devotional service. I don't feel very enlightened, but I'm aware that this is devotional service. So an example that did come to my mind of someone we read about in Srimad Bhagavatam is Narada Muni, like in his previous life, before he was Narada Muni, he was the son of a maidservant, and the maidservant, they had visitors, guests, and Narada Muni was serving the guests. They were pure devotees of God, of Krishna, and he was serving them and eating the leftovers of their food, of their prasadam, and that was devotional service. And then he got enlightened, and in his next life he took birth as Narada Muni, and that's what he's doing now. Like, he's performing enlightened devotional service. And then the complete meaning of renunciation and knowledge, that stood out for me too. So devotional service, it's completion of knowledge and detachment, renunciation. And there's so much, it seems like such a key, this knowledge and detachment, like the combination, and that with true knowledge comes detachment, and with detachment comes true knowledge. And there's, like, earlier in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, I was intensely studying these verses in the second chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, and there's also so much about knowledge and detachment, devotional service. That's those who perform devotional service in complete knowledge, they automatically get detachment, and they can see God as he is, they can see Krishna as he is, and they describe him in his different aspects. And another word that stood out for me was, okay, so those who are enlightened in devotional service, they are full of knowledge, complete knowledge and complete detachment, and they attain Vaikuntha Loka, in the spiritual sky. That's the place where Krishna resides, God resides in different forms. And it seems like a very, very simple process, simply by drinking the nectar of your topics. So the way to come to devotional service and knowledge and renunciation is and return to the land of God, to Vaikuntha, to the place where there's no stress and anxiety and fear. It's hearing about Krishna and about his pastimes. And yeah, for me, that's so, we were discussing this week about Krishna and how confusing it is for our conditioned mind to understand, like, the activities of Krishna in the spiritual world, and then to the activities we perform here. And like, we in the conversations, I was saying, well, we endeavor to be like moral, to be high in our moral, and so not to steal and not to lie. And then Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he's stealing, he's lying, he's cheating, he's doing all these activities. So how to understand that? And yeah, it's like it's so for the material mind, it's impossible to understand Krishna. And I think that's what Srila Prabhupada elaborates on, like, in his purport, that for impersonalists, there are like a lot of different impersonalists. But one description of impersonalists, they try to understand God with their mind. They're like so jnani yogis. They try to understand who God is with the material mind. And Srila Prabhupada says it's just miserable. It's a miserable understanding. also, or it's miserable. It's I looked up. There is a verse in Bhagavad Gita, which describes a little more about the impersonalist and how what's the meaning of this, why this is miserable, like, because I know that, like, I have experiences of feeling like totally at peace, moments of experience, feeling totally at peace with my circumstances, with nature, with other people in my life, like an experience of oneness. And it's quite a blissful experience from my experience. So merging with Krishna and to merge into this oneness, I say it's a blissful experience. But those who have experience of direct relationship with Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, like from that perspective, it's miserable. It's a miserable experience. So that's quite far out. So the verse I found in Bhagavad Gita, it's 12:5. It's Kleshoti katarastesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukam dehavapir avapyate. And the translation is, for those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. And then Srila Prabhupada describes in the purport how to make progress in impersonal realization, it means to learn the language, to study the scriptures, and it means like a lot of study, and also to understand. He says a special word. He says, okay, I will read it. They have to understand the unmanifested representation of the Supreme through such Vedic literatures as the Upanishads. And they have to learn the language, understand the non-perceptual feelings, and they have to realize all these processes. This is not very easy for a common man. So on non-perceptual feelings, I was reminded of our Nectar of Devotion reading group, where we are reading about the symptoms of ecstatic love and all these different feelings, and non-perceptual feelings, like for us, for me, as a conditioned soul, and as perhaps aware of the material experience, but not aware, not able to have the spiritual experience of all these feelings. Like it's non-perceptual. These feelings are non-perceptual. So to read about them in the Nectar of Devotion, we often sit here and one will say, well, what is he talking about? What is this experience? So, yeah. And what Krishna says here, and what Srila Prabhupada, what they describe is, it's not necessary to go through this struggle, this troublesome thinking and trying to understand, because in devotional service, everything will be revealed and experienced. What something else, like devotional service, that Srila Prabhupada speaks about that in the purport. That devotional service means brings automatically perfect knowledge and renunciation, and there's a lot of what else I want to say? Yeah, like and he says it's simple. It's simple. I think I'm going to find it. okay, no, before going there, I want to go somewhere else. Yeah, that's where I wanted to go. What Srila Prabhupada describes in the purport is that, so this impersonal realization, it's very difficult, it's hard, it's miserable. And also demons get this, come to the same, attain the same destination. And I was thinking, oh, then, like, yeah, like the demons, they, and there's examples, there's an example. What came to my mind was the example of Aghasura. I think it stayed with me because in Little Krishna, in the cartoon, it's a very clear scene. What happens, Aghasura, when he got killed by Krishna, the soul kind of went up into the sky and waited. And when Krishna, actually, I think I'm going to tell a little more about Aghasura, because that's what's going to bring us. That's the nectar we get, and by drinking that we get to devotional service, knowledge, and detachment. So it's very beautiful. I started to listen to the dictation in Krishna book by Srila Prabhupada. I didn't finish because we had guests for lunch and they came 1 hour early, so I only heard the beginning, and the beginning is very beautiful. Srila Prabhupada describes how the cowherd boys went out with the calves, and they were all dressed nicely, and they were playing. They went to the forest, and they were playing in the forest. Everyone, each boy had a lunch pack, and they would steal the lunch packs from each other. And that was the game they were playing. They would run and try and catch Krishna. Who is first? Who will catch Krishna first? And it's described how they were trying to imitate the cuckoos and by sound. And they would play peacocks, and also they would play monkeys climbing in the trees. So they were having all this fun, and all of a sudden they saw a big cave, and they noticed, well, this cave, we have never seen this cave before. What is this cave? And they have quite interesting conversations, because some now immediately know it's a demon, that they shouldn't go there, and others say, yeah, let's go there because Krishna can save us. And so there's all this this talk. I was going to say nonsensical talk. It's because it's quite it seems quite contradictory. And again, I guess it's, to the material mind, it's contradictory, and for the heart, for the soul, it's nectar, it's bliss, the way they talk and what they say. And what they do is they all walk in, they go to the cave, and they know it's a snake. It's a huge snake. Aghasura is a huge snake, and he was sent by Kamsa to kill Krishna. And he transformed himself into a huge snake and opened his mouth, and the mouth looked like a cave, because he knew curious boys, they will want to go and explore the cave. And so that's what the cowherd boys did. They walked into the cave, even though they smelled, it was a horrible smell, and they knew this is coming from the stomach of this snake, and still they walked into the snake and disappeared. And it's described how Krishna became even worried. Krishna became worried about the cowherd boys. Although he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he's all-powerful and he knows everything, past, present, and future. He got concerned and worried about the cowherd boys. And he then, the cowherd boys then really understood, okay, it is a snake and it's very dangerous and we're going to die. We need someone to save us. And so they called out for Krishna, and Krishna walked into the mouth of the snake and expanded himself, and the snake died. Like he. The snake couldn't breathe anymore and died. And then it's described how the soul as a light left the body of the snake and was like hovering, flying in the sky, and waited there. And then when Krishna and the cowherd boys came out, the soul entered into the body of Krishna. attained impersonal liberation, merged with the body of Krishna. So that's like, yeah, someone who's doing like terrible things, awful things, demonic things. He's someone who tries to kill God, Krishna, and his best friends. He gets the same liberation as someone who's trying to understand Krishna, the impersonal aspect of God, through mental speculation. So that's another thing that blows my mind. That this is this is how it works. So let's not endeavor for these paths. We get devotional service. In devotional service, the goal and the path, the goal and the path and the goal are the same. So by endeavoring to reach the goal, we are on the path, and by being on the path, we have already reached the goal. So it seems like a far more practical and successful way to go. And also what we hear here, and I guess many of us experience, it's a joyful path. And again, there's a verse in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, I think it's 9:2, chapter 9, verse 2. Maybe, dear Govinda, would you like to recite it? You're on mute.
Vajraguyam.
Prajakshivagamam damyam shushukam kartamavya. This process is joyfully performed.
Yes, thank you. This is one. It's a joyful process, and it's a blissful process. And that sometimes that's also quite confusing to me. There's many things about Krishna consciousness that are confusing to me, and or let's say it's confusing to my mind. It's not confusing for my heart. It's confusing for my mind. This it's joyfully performed. Again, doesn't mean we're always happy. Like when we start chanting and we go through this phase of anartha nivritti, so we start chanting, and then all the garbage comes up, all the understanding of how entangled I am, how unfree I am, how covered I am, how confused and ignorant I am. Like more and more, the more I chant, the more I can see, I can understand what this conditioning means, and how serious it is, and how deep it goes. And it's painful. In my experience, it's a painful process. Yet the chanting itself also gives an experience of joy, an experience of sweetness. Singing kirtan or reading Srimad Bhagavatam, reading Krishna Lila, there's so much joy in that. So it is joyful, even though it can be painful and miserable. So again, like it's a combination. Srila Prabhupada says at somewhere, he says it's simple. It's about simple activities. So devotional service and complete knowledge and renunciation. It doesn't mean we're not doing anything anymore. It's about what came to my mind was this verse from Rupa Goswami, and I copied it. I will read it. He speaks about renunciation, and that renunciation and complete knowledge, it doesn't mean we're not doing anything anymore. Like to just say, okay, I renounce everything and I just sit in a cave and I meditate. Maybe for some that's devotional service, but Rupa Goswami describes something else. He says, Anashaktasya Vishayan Yataram Upayunchata Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagya Uchate. And then there's another verse, the next one. Prapanchikataya Pujya Hari Sambandhi Vastuna Mumukshubi Parityago Vairagyam Falgu Katyate. And the translation is, when one is not attached to anything, but at the same time accepts everything in relation to Krishna, one is rightly situated above possessiveness. On the other hand, one who rejects everything without knowledge of its relationship to Krishna is not as complete in his renunciation. I really like this. I like these verses a lot. They're from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is Nectar of Devotion, which describes this renunciation. And Srila Prabhupada speaks about it in different lectures, and he uses the example that's one example that stayed with me. He was explaining what this renunciation, complete renunciation means, and he says, like, I'm here, I have this tape recorder, and so I could renounce the tape recorder and just not have anything, but I'm accepting the tape recorder for service to Krishna, to record Krishna book, for example. I don't know what he was re-recording at the time, but I know he recorded Krishna book. So, and he said, that's complete renunciation. So I accept everything material that comes to me and I apply it in service to Krishna. That's perfect renunciation. That's perfect detachment. That's liberation. So it's not about like bhakti yoga, and I think that's what I appreciate about it so much. It's not about leaving anything unnaturally or by force. It's not about, okay, now I'm a devotee and I will not have contact with my family anymore. I'm going to leave my job. I'm going to leave everything behind me. That's not the path of bhakti yoga. It's again, maybe for some it is, and that maybe at a certain stage of life it could be, okay, now I'm leaving everything behind. But like for me, where I'm at, it's about embracing everything that supports my self-realization and my service to Krishna. And then with time, what I see, what happens is that certain things I'm just not doing anymore. I just lose interest. Or naturally, there's less things in the house because I'm not going out to shop unnecessarily because they just look nice or I think I need them. So this process, it naturally happens. And it's organic, and it's kind of like when I was a child. I think I shared this example before. When I was a child, I would love to go and swim in the sea. Like in summer holidays, we would go to England. There's no sea in Switzerland, so we would go to England and we would go and swim in the sea, and I would go and swim every day. Even if it was raining, I just wanted to swim in the sea every day, and it was really cold. And then like my parents or my grandparents, even more, they didn't want to go into the sea. And I thought, it must be so bad when you grow up, you don't even want to go to the sea anymore and swim in the cold water. And that was my understanding. Okay, so they have to renounce swimming in the sea, and it's terrible, it's boring. And now I'm older, and I go to the sea with my kids, and they swim every day, even if it's cold, and I don't go and swim if it's cold. And I'm really glad I don't have to go and swim when it's cold. So that's like my experience also in this process of bhakti yoga, devotional service. Yeah, like naturally I will lose taste for certain things. They're just not important anymore. And I even feel grateful that I don't need to engage in these activities or have these things anymore. And then there's also in the purport described how a devotee throws away all achievements to engage in devotional service and experience transcendental bliss. That okay, it's one thing to renounce material things, to renounce like objects, a house or I don't know, furniture or shoes or whatever, but to renounce achievements. And I was immediately, an example that came to my mind was Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami. They achieved so much in their life. They were employed with the governor, and they had very high salary, very high prestige. They were well known. They had a lot of power. Sanatan Goswami, it said that he was actually ruling, like the governor was busy doing other things, and he was actually in charge. So they had all these great achievements, and they got like their soul wasn't fulfilled. Something in them wasn't fulfilled. They were not even that they wasn't fulfilled. They were miserable, and they just from one day to the next, they just threw away. They left their jobs, they left their homes, and they went to Vrindavan to join Lord Chaitanya and engage in enlightened, pure devotional service. Yes, I think I have mentioned not everything, almost everything. I also noted down, somehow this stood out for me, that devotional service, it's simple. It's simple. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, like devotional service, he gives an example of, okay, maybe I can get it. Maybe I can do this one. He says, Patram pushpam palam toyam yome bhakti prayadachi tadaham bhakti uparitam ashnani prayatatmanaha. Yeah, like he says, if one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, water, grain, I think, grain, and something else, fruit, I accept, and I will be. You wanted to add?
Malini added a flower.
Flower, yes. So that's so simple. It's so simple. I can just, like, when I walk from one place to another, I pass for sure. I will, okay, maybe someone who's living in a big city doesn't, but where I live, it's easy to pass a tree, a leaf, and take a leaf and offer it to Krishna. It's very simple. And I know, like, it took me, and it still does sometimes take me, when the flowers on the altar start to get old, it's so simple to just go outside and get fresh flowers and put them on the altar, and yet it takes for me to do like an internal endeavor. Okay, I'm going to do it now, even though it's so simple. And that's like another confusing thing about devotional service. So much bliss and happiness in performing it, and yet it takes for each time, it takes for me like to like an internal, I don't know how to say it. It's like going over a I don't know the word in English. A doorstep. Like you need to make an effort and take a step and go into devotional service, and then there's so much bliss. Yeah. So why is that? Why is this heaviness, this inertia? Okay, I will read the verse again. O Lord, persons who because of their serious attitude, attain the stage of enlightened devotional service, achieve the complete meaning of renunciation and knowledge, and attain the Vaikuntha Loka in the spiritual sky, simply by drinking the nectar of your topics. Hare Krishna. And I hope you have some questions or sharings. Anything someone wants to express or add, or
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Anandini. I'm moved and enlivened by your class and presentation. A pearl that sticks out for me was right in the first moments where you shared about serious attitude, and you said what it doesn't mean we don't have fun or there's not joy, and you said it means I really mean it. So it was so simple and impactful the way you expressed and communicated what a serious attitude for Krishna consciousness means, for self-realization, understanding we're not the body, we're spirit, soul means. I really mean it. So I thank you for that.
Thank you.
I'll share something. Something that's coming up for me is that our life changes when our why changes. And when we're in devotional service, our why is different than just acting and doing the dishes because we need to clean the dishes or sweeping or something. But when it's devotional service, we're sweeping for Krishna or eating for Krishna. And in that, I just feel like a sense of it's like peace and love when I'm in that state of consciousness, when my why is for Krishna.
Yeah, like you might still be doing the same things, and it's for a different reason, and then your experience of life changes completely.
Yeah.
Instead of, the dishes again, it's like, oh, I get to do the dishes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also a sense of slowness too. Instead of like rushing, I have to do all these things. It's like it is a get to. I get to do this. I get to enjoy. I get to be present.
Yeah. When you're saying this, it's like what comes to my mind is the path is the goal. Like it's not, you don't need to finish the dishes and finish the cleaning and the washing and the shopping and paying the bills, and then you get to be like peaceful and doing something for Krishna. It's like immediately what you're doing, and then there's no rush. Thank you for sharing this. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that point and those principles that in bhakti, unlike any other path, the process is the goal, the journey is the goal. So by doing the dishes for Krishna, that's the goal. Well, the goal is love of Krishna. Go back to be a cowherd boy in Goloka Vrindavan. Okay, I mean, that there's also a journey. At the same time, we're chanting Hare Krishna, and we're taking care of our bodies, thinking, okay, I can use these bodies for Krishna. That's the goal. And for me, that's when you emphasized about simple, Anandini, that's what I'm getting. When Srila Prabhupada writes that the devotees enter into the kingdom of all pleasures even from the beginning of their attempt. The journey is the goal. The devotee has only to hear about devotional activities which are as simple as anything in ordinary life. So, Prabhupada's talking about what we would call ordinary life, ordinary life, that we relate with each other. Oh, well, that's not bhakti. No, we relate with each other, supporting each other in Krishna consciousness. That's simple. We communicate, we eat, we clean. Simple. Ordinary life, and we dovetail that into the blissful journey of Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada goes on to say, and he also acts very simply. Whereas the mental speculator has to, again, the have to language as you're using. The mental speculator has to pass through a jugglery of words. And I appreciated you referenced Bhagavad Gita chapter 12, text 5, where that's what Krishna is saying. Kleshu dighataraste samabhyakta sakrit chetasam. It's the impersonal path. There's validity to it, but it's so difficult. And Prabhupada's emphasizing that right in the beginning of the purport. The difference between the impersonalist mental speculators and the pure devotees of the Lord is that the former pass through a miserable understanding of the absolute truth at every stage. That's a very heavy word, miserable. And because for Srila Prabhupada fully realizing Krishna everywhere in every activity, in the heart of every living entity, and just that very personal bliss, colorful, full of personality and form and like that. And then with Prabhupada's realization, the idea of some attempt to understand the supreme, the absolute, without personality, without form, without activities, without washing the dishes, without prasad. It's like, this is hellish, this is miserable. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it's in the same purport, where later on Srila Prabhupada says, like someone who's on this path, on this miserable path, strenuous path of impersonal realization, might also get to the point of personal realization and engage in bhakti yoga. Yet there's a great risk that this person doesn't get there.
Yeah.
And then it's such a waste of time.
Yeah.
To all this effort, and then when we hear that the spirit soul goes into the brahmajyoti, so this effulgence, and stays there for millions and millions and millions of years, and at one point becomes unhappy again and comes back into the material world and just goes through the whole thing again. So it's a risk. It's also a risk.
And I like what you shared there, emphasizing that, okay, and even if one on that path is successful and it's relevant, because, actually almost everything other than what Prabhupada brought, almost anything connected with the East, India, it's some form of that path. Of course, not in a truly austere, genuine form, but some form of that. And then you make the point that even if they achieve the success, the ultimate goal of that path is bhakti. So Prabhupada, he'll say sometimes he's giving us the elevator, because the elevator to the goal of all those other paths, including the non-personal journey.
Yeah, and I think what's special and unique, it came to my awareness a few days ago. I was speaking with a lady. She's very, very spiritually advanced. Like, she has a very high consciousness, and she's studying some Christian books, not so much the Bible, but some other Christian mystics. And I can see from her understanding, philosophical understanding, so much is like Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti Yoga. But when it comes to the point of who is God, there's so much, like what she shared with me was, we can be really glad to be in this material body, because with the material body, we can kind of look to God and experience Him. And when we leave our bodies, this is no longer possible, because we merge with God. And I felt pain when she said this. I thought, wow, what an approach to life. If I think I need this body, how much fear there must be. Like, I need this material body to experience God, because when I leave this body, I will not experience Him anymore. I will be melted with Him. So scary. And from Srila Prabhupada and Srimad Bhagavatam, we get insight into like when we leave the body and we develop a spiritual body, that's when we can start to engage with God. And then the experience we have here are like I don't know, they lose color, they lose light. They're not nothing compared.
I appreciate that example. Sounds like the lady you were speaking with has some an appreciation for the higher, including spiritual values of life. She's a elevated consciousness, a special soul, and she's been entrapped by an impersonal path. And the way you describe her perspective, it kind of promotes, in the name of spiritual life and God consciousness, to be attached to the bag of bones, blood, pus, like that. And there's another, I appreciated you quoted the verses from Rupa Goswami about real renunciation and incomplete or false renunciation. And then there's another verse by Rupa Goswami, Ihayasya harerdasya karmana manasagira nikilas vapyavasta sujivan mukta sa uchyate. And in that verse, he says, in the path of bhakti, we don't even need to wait till we leave this body, that even within this body, we spiritualize, we begin to spiritualize our senses. It's not like these senses become like Goloka Vrindavan, but they become spiritually plated. Like Prabhupada gives the example of like there's gold and then there's gold plated. So like as we consume only prasadam, and as we use our bodies to play instruments in kirtan and dance in kirtan, and we use our power of speech to talk about self-realization, Krishna consciousness, then these senses they become spiritualized, and so it's, in a sense, the devotional soul doesn't even need to wait to leave this body to experience that spiritual bliss with spiritual senses. In my personal reading, I'm reading in Krishna book, chapter 86, Prayers by the Personified Vedas. And that starts with Maharaj Parikshit asking Shukadev Goswami, well, the Vedas, that's sound, and sound is material. So how can we ever get spiritual realization from that realm with, hearing material sound with material ears, and sound is material and speech is material? So Shukadeva Goswami, he clarifies that, sure, these senses are built, these senses of this body, they're built to engage in material activities and further our entanglement in Maya, true. At the same time, another purpose, another possibility of the senses is we can use these senses to understand absolute truth. We can engage these senses in spiritual sound and spiritual washing the dishes and spiritual topics about Krishna and self-realization. So these very senses, we can use them spiritually, and that's precisely what we're meant to do. We can also misuse them materially and get further entangled. So just wanted to share those points.
Yeah, thank you. That reminds me of the principle of conscious living. Choose what you have. In a sense, we don't have anything else right now to realize God except this body and the senses and the mind. We don't have anything else.
Yeah, choose. I like that. Choose what we have. Yeah. I see Bhakteen Kelly's hand is up.
Yes, Hare Krishna, Kelly.
Hare Krishna. I'm enjoying the conversation and the exploration, and I wanted to go back to where Valerie chimed in, and you guys continued the conversation about the joy of changing your perspective into the duties of the day, turning into a joyful service. And it reminded me of how Dear Govinda has said so many times in seminars, when I feel like I don't want to take up space, and he says, this is exactly what time is for. And it made me think to apply that to the services, the duties that we have in our day, if they're all for Krishna, And if it feels like we don't have enough time to get all these duties completed, like what a gift that there's so much service to do that we would never run out of things to do. Like even if we stayed up for 24 hours a day, we could always be serving. It's just an interesting shift in my perspective, hearing y'all speak and coming to that.
Yeah, like so instead of feeling weighed down by the to-do list, you're excited that the to-do list is like never ending.
Yeah, and that feeling of time, like I think the not enough time is a common feeling I have of like, there's just not enough time in the day, and it can create anxiety. And to flip it over is just it's completely opposite experience. So it feels fun.
Like are you saying that instead of being in this anxiety of there's not enough time, like there's always plenty of time?
Yeah, like Dear Govinda says, like this is exactly what time is for, is to be engaging in this service. And so and it's like, what is time when you're looking at it from that perspective? Like, why does time need to be this pressure, this thing that's running out, this that you can't complete things because there's not enough time, and instead to move into what a wonderful thing to have so many things to do with my time and service specifically.
Yeah, thanks for sharing this.
Thank you, sir.
It's a shift in perspective, and it brings a shift in experience. And yeah, when you're saying this, like there's not enough time, I use that expression sometimes too. I don't have enough time. It's in a sense, it's a really strange expression because there's always time. There's always the same time. There's not too much or too little. Time is just time.
Yeah, it's a concept.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Bhakti and Kelly and Anandini. Well, we use this term related to what Bhakti and Kelly shared. We've got all the time in the world and not a moment to lose. And so that's Krishna consciousness. It's pure sattvic consciousness, pure sattva, not contaminated sattva. And and Prabhupada would often be described, because what Prabhupada was managing and doing as far as the details, inconceivable. And still he would always, the descriptions of him, he was just fully childlike, all the time in the world, all the time in the world for what matters, Krishna consciousness, no rush, no pressure. And what he achieved is inconceivable. Prabhupada was known to have said, when he would go to take rest, he would say, when he was going to sleep, he would say, now I'm going to waste time. Now, of course, we don't regard Prabhupada as sleeping or wasting time. For such a pure devotee, his sleeping's not like my sleeping, ignorance. Even his sleeping is enlightened devotional service, like that. But from his perspective, just as Kelly shared, yeah, we want 72 hours in a day to use in Krishna's service. And then that's it. Like, okay, like time, Krishna says, kalosmi, kshaya pravrita, kshaya vrit. Krishna says, I am time. I am time. Kalosmi. So just like money is an energy of Krishna. So just like when we use money consciously in Krishna's service, money is not this material energy. It's Lakshmi. And Lakshmi, that's her purpose, to be used in service to Krishna. And so similarly with time. Time's an energy of Krishna. We could try to use it for my enjoyment, then it's always anxiety. And it's kind of like, oh, there's this 24 hours per day. I'm enthused to use it for Krishna. And when it's used, then there's no complacency. Then there's urgency, appreciating the value of each moment. because it's not for my sense gratification. But this is for the Supreme Personality of God. Then there's urgency and bliss, not anxiety. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I appreciate this. And I would add there's no anxiety and there's no stress either. Yeah, thank you. Parampara, you have your hand raised.
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me okay?
Yes?
I was hearing this conversation about time, and I saw something on Facebook, Twitter, whatever, somewhere, and the person was saying, he said, I'm tired of, I looked it up because I couldn't remember. He said, I'm tired of explaining that I don't have the time doesn't mean literally every second of my schedule is accounted for, but rather I'm giving as much of myself as I'm currently able to give. So maybe for Sattva we would translate that to, I'm giving as much of myself as I'm currently willing to give. And so I think it's like I appreciated that, because sometimes I might think, oh, I don't have the time, and I feel like guilty. Like, no, I have, like, there are literally moments in my schedule where I could do something else, It's not that my every second is accounted for already with things that I'm already doing, but it's like, no, that's like we say that I don't have the time, but it's like, well, it means maybe more honestly or more, more precise language is that, well, I'm giving as much of myself as I'm currently willing to give, and I'm not available for that or whatever it is. So I appreciate that, perspective. And with bhakti, it could be like that with bhakti also. It's like, well, I'm giving myself based on this is how much I'm willing to give myself, and then of course I can stretch myself, but and be endeavoring to filling up my schedule completely with Krishna conscious activities. But anyway, I thought to share that because it seemed to be relevant.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing this. It's like a more responsible point of or place to say I'm not willing to give more time to this. And rather than saying I don't have the time. Yeah, and to be like honest about what I'm willing to give, also in devotional service. And it's not that I can't, I'm not willing to. Anasuya, you also had your hand raised for a moment. Did you want to share something?
Anandini, I'm sorry I joined late, but I really am enjoying the conversation. And I was thinking of your laughter yesterday. So I was thinking of the just like how beautiful it was to see your giving class today, and just it's ecstatic love for God looks like many different things. And so I'm appreciating the conversation and our sharing. And so thank you for giving class this morning.
Thank you, Anasuya. Yeah. Yeah, it was yesterday during Nectar of Devotion reading. I just read one sentence and I had to laugh. I didn't have a choice. I had to laugh and I couldn't stop laughing. And when and it was really about this. I shared today, like for my mind, devotional service is just completely confusing. And for my heart and my soul, it's completely blissful. So thank you, Anasuya, for sharing. Anything else? So I'll read the verse again. O Lord, persons who, because of their serious attitude, attain the stage of enlightened devotional service, achieve the complete meaning of renunciation and knowledge, and attain the Vaikuntha Loka in the spiritual sky, simply by drinking the nectar of your topics. Thank you, everyone. It was joyful to be with you, and I wish you a day full of nectar of Krishna's topics. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai,
Jai.
ki jai.
Jai Hare Krishna.
Prabhupada ki jai.